Hey guys, and welcome to the new series, A Darkened Night. Written by me, Stacey Holt. As always, if you are enjoying the series, like, subscribe, and comment. As for my voice actors, Diz will be voicing Cat Noir, Adrien, and Felix. I will be voicing Sabine, Marinette, Ladybug, and the narrator. Alya and Lila will be voiced by RoseWrites. Nino will be voiced by MerryMitch. Tom will be voiced by Zachary-CT. Zoe will be voiced by Yasmin. Chloe will be voiced by Cry. Luka will be voiced by TitaniumKitten. Chapter 1. As the night came, so did 3 knocks on the door. Marinette opened it, finding her friends Alya, Nino, and Adrien on the other side. "Hey guys, thanks for coming," Marinette smiled. She invited them inside, as they were asked to come over before the big Halloween party that evening at Chloe's hotel. Chloe had been hyping her party up all month, inviting everyone, even Marinette, which was surprising to say the least. They all crept up the stairs, admiring the Dupan Cheng's decorative skills along the way. There were creepy decorations everywhere, to spider webs that hung from the ceiling, to frightful paintings on the walls. They even had bloody footprint stickers scattered throughout the home, including on the walls, and footprints that led up to Marinette's bedroom. It truly felt like a nightmarish Halloween night.
Your family really loves Halloween, huh?
Adrien asked.
Her family always decorates for every holiday, especially Christmas and Halloween.
Alya smiled. As they made their way to Marinette's room, they heard the door shut behind them. Marinette had shut it behind them to give them some privacy from the parents, who lurked somewhere in the house. They all took a seat in the middle of the floor, waiting for Marinette. Before they knew it, the lights went out, causing everyone to grow tense. That was until Marinette came over with a smile on her face, holding a bowl of candies and goodies, while also holding a flashlight in her hands. Alya quickly grabbed the flashlight from Marinette, already knowing what was about to happen. Nino grabbed a few pieces of candy from the bowl that Marinette had sat in the middle, while Adrien nudged over to imply that she could sit beside him. Marinette blushed and tried to casually sit down beside him, trying not to let her brush be seen in the dim lighting.
So, what are we doing?
Adrien asked, still a little uneasy.
Marinette and I always do this around or on Halloween. We decided to invite you two, as it would make it more interesting.
Alya smirked.
Do what? You didn't tell me what we were doing?
Nino pouted.
We're telling scary stories.
Alya said, making a scary face and wiggling her fingers to try and create a more eerie atmosphere.
Scary stories?
Adrien asked, puzzled.
Yeah, it helps create the atmosphere for the party later.
Alya winked. Marinette grabbed a few blankets around her room and off of her bed, then sprawled them around everyone, smiling and rolling her eyes at Alya's poor attempt at being scary. Though she didn't say anything, as she knew how much fun Alya had trying to scare everyone, so she didn't want to spoil it. Marinette loved telling stories with Alya. They were interesting to say the least, but hardly scary. She just enjoyed their yearly tradition of getting together and feeling the eerie time of year. Marinette sat back down beside Adrien and saw Alya holding the flashlight below her face to give herself a more eerie face than before. She cleared her throat, and before they knew it, they were all listening carefully to Alya's story, while munching occasionally on the pieces of candy that sat in front of them. Nino's eyes were glued to Alya as he was eating pieces of candy, focused on the story at hand. Marinette looked around and saw even Adrien was getting a little creeped out by her story, and she couldn't help herself either. This story in particular was rather frightening. It seemed that Alya had been preparing for a night of fright. She felt goosebumps crawl up her skin as Alya was getting to the climax of her story.
Then, as the kids crept closer to the closet, they slowly reached for the door. Their breath caught in their throats as the door creaked open. And there it was.
Alya began in an intense and creepy voice.
What?
Adrien asked, almost inching forward.
What was there?
Nino asked as well, both boys consumed by the story.
The head of a ghost lay in the bottom of the closet, blood pouring out of its mouth, cackling and smiling with its darkened eyes as the body crept closer to the poor fools that stood in front, grabbing them and slamming the door shut behind them. The poor kids were never seen again, forever lingering within the legends of the Closet Taker story.
Alya smiled fiercely, seeing everyone terrified of her story. Nino grabbed hold of Alya for comfort as he was shaking. Marinette grabbed the blanket that lay in front of her, but felt something warm touch her skin. She jumped back with a squeak, as Adrien did the same. As they jumped away from one another, they smiled and laughed, finally realizing that they simply just touched each other's hands underneath the blanket that they somehow were sharing. Alya smiled at Marinette. Marinette's face turned bright pink.
Well, I suppose it's time to go to the party. Did everyone remember to bring their costumes?
Alya asked, looking at both Adrien and Marinette. I did remember, Marinette pouted.
I also have mine. Should we go put them on and meet back at the front door so we can leave for the party?
Adrien smiled.
Sounds good to me, dude.
Nino smiled. With that, everyone got dressed. Alya made it to the door first, waiting for the others. He heard footsteps coming down the stairs. There was Nino. He walked up to her in a bright white t-shirt that had drops of red, which she assumed was made to look like blood splattered on it. Over the white shirt was a black vest, matching his black pants and black boots. He smiled and put his hat on, thinking he was looking good for his lady.
Think you dropped this?
Alya laughed, showing him his fake sword.
Aw, babe, you knew what I was going to be? I wanted it to be a surprise.
Nino sighed, taking hold of the sword. Alya laughed and patted his shoulder, reassuring him that he looked amazing in his pirate costume.
I think the eyeliner fits you well,
she teased. Before any more teasing could be done, they heard another set of footsteps coming down the stairs. To their amazement, it was Adrien. He walked down in an almost shining knightly costume with the Aggress brand on his chest and a sword on his hip. They assumed it was to show off the Aggress brand, but they weren't complaining as it took a lot of pleading for Adrien to be able to celebrate Halloween with them. The outfit itself looked very expensive and almost real looking, but they assumed it wasn't, or it would be extremely heavy.
Awesome costume, dude!
Nino spoke up.
Thanks, Nino. I like yours too. Alya? Nice elf costume. I like it.
Adrien smiled, seeing her dressed in a dark green dress with a brown vest wrapped around her waist.
Thanks. I think your costume suits you rather well.
Alya smiled. As Adrien got closer, he could see her elven makeup as well as her elf ears poking out of her hair. Then they all turned around as they heard footsteps coming down the stairs one last time. It was Marinette. Adrien's eyes twinkled as she stood in front of him a few feet away. Face bright as a cherry, she wore black and red striped knee-highs that were attached underneath her thigh-length dress. The dress she wore also had a very faint red sheath with black cloth on the outside. She wore a tall witch's hat with a red ribbon wrapped around it to help complement the accents of her costume. As she made her way closer to them, she became more clear. Adrien blinked as she stood in front of him, looking up at him with her bright blue eyes. She was wearing eyeliner and red eyeshadow with a little black heart underneath one of her eyes. Before Adrien or anyone else could say anything about her costume, they all heard two sets of footsteps rushing down the stairs to meet them. They all turned around to find a woman in a white sheet with eye holes cut out of it, and Tom dressed up like a baguette. Everyone started to laugh as they were fooling around, saying things like Tom was a floating baguette. Everyone had a good laugh. Then Adrien got a text from Chloe.
Oh,
He said, glancing down at the time.
guys, we should hurry or we'll be late. You know how Chloe can be.
Everyone started walking out when Tom took off his costume and grabbed Marinette's hand.
Marinette, wait.
Hmm?
Please be safe out there tonight. Halloween is a very strong night for evil, wicked things. Me and your mother both want you to be safe,
He said in a worried voice. Oh, Dad, I'll be fine. Don't worry. I'll have my phone if anything happens. With that, she left with the others, only to arrive at the haunted hotel. As they stepped into the lobby, their ears were filled with creepy, dark music. The hotel was also heavily decorated. People dressed in different costumes were everywhere. There wasn't a single person that they knew that didn't dress up. From afar, you couldn't pinpoint who anyone was. It looked like black silhouettes dancing under the eerie lights that hung above them. Marinette watched as Alya dragged Nino to the dance floor, joining in on the Halloween fun. Something in white came rushing towards them, and before they knew it, Chloe was standing in front of Marinette and Adrien, showing off her angel costume. Marinette gave a disgusted face and rolled her eyes as she left, leaving Adrien and her to mingle, finding her way to the table with drinks. She poured herself some juice from a big punch bowl when someone approached her. She turned her head and saw someone with their head in their hands and was a lot taller than her. She looked closer and saw that it was Luka. Oh, Luka, I didn't notice you there. I like your costume, Marinette smiled.
Really? Not many people realize I'm the Headless Horseman, considering I don't have a horse nearby.
He chuckled. I still think it looks good regardless, Marinette insisted.
Having fun?
He asked, pouring himself some punch as well. We just got here, so... She trailed off, hoping it would suggest she wasn't, yet.
Marinette!
A voice called.
Marinette, you look adorable in your outfit!
Rose smiled cheerfully. Marinette turned her attention to everyone who was now surrounding her. It was Rose, Julika, Zoe, Sabrina, and a few others. She inspected each person's costumes, admiring how everyone took their time in choosing a costume to match their personalities and hobbies. Well, except for Zoe, who was wearing a red devil costume. Marinette sighed, now knowing how Chloe was an angel and her sister was the devil. She assumed she made Zoe wear it. Sabrina was in a bunny costume, wearing bunny ears, a bunny tail, and a cute little white dress. Max styled his hair upwards and sprayed it white, wearing a trench coat like a mad scientist. Rose was extremely colorful, wearing different colors almost everywhere. She had glitter all through her outfit and hair, with a tiny horn poking out of her head on top. Marinette assumed she was a unicorn. Julika wore her usual outfit and put fangs in her mouth with tiny red dots on her neck, also assuming she was a vampire. Light conversation took place until an eerie feeling started to surround them. The music changed. Everyone looked on the dance floor, found a mysterious figure standing there. No one knew who it was. No one talked to them. They simply stood there, their long, black hair covering their face. As many people turned and were now staring at the figure who was simply standing in the center, Marinette could feel something was not quite right with the person. She shook the eerie feeling off though, thinking it was just going to be an announcement from Chloe's henchman or something. Adrien took his attention off of Chloe, who was almost standing in his line of sight of everyone, and started heading toward his group of friends, leaving Chloe.
Marinette?
He said, grabbing her arm. Huh? She said wide-eyed, seeing Adrien pulling her toward him.
Hey, can you come over here for a second?
He asked, still lightly pulling on her sleeve. She nodded, and while everyone was staring at the mysterious guest, she slipped away from the eyes of the crowd. Adrien? Do you know that person over there? Marinette asked, glancing back at the individual whose face was hidden.
I don't, but I have a feeling that Chloe and Sabrina are up to something. They used to come over here when we were younger and try to scare me and Felix.
He explained. It sounds like Chloe, but why are you telling me this? She asked, confused.
I don't want you to get tricked. You're easily scareable as it is.
He laughed with a smile. She blushed and felt a little embarrassed. Adrien noticed she seemed a little tense and almost embarrassed, so he quickly apologized.
I really like your costume, by the way.
He smiled with a blush.
It's really cute.
Cute? She asked wide-eyed, almost like she couldn't believe what she was hearing.
Yeah, I think you look great in it.
He reassured her, but the sweet moment didn't last, as all of a sudden the lights went out, and they heard screams around them. They turned around, trying to see what was happening, and Marinette's wide eyes turned to Adrien, who was already sighing, knowing it was Chloe trying to scare everyone. They faintly saw shadowy figures running around, but not in any particular direction. They eventually saw a few people rush for the lights, but faint clicks with no lights coming back on caused them to get tense. Everyone assumed the power was cut, or they were having a power outage. None of the power in the hotel was working now. Marinette tried to squint in the darkness to see clearer, but it was no use. Since the power was cut, it was almost pitch black inside, except for the occasional light that crept in through the windows from the street lights outside.
See?
Adrien pointed to Marinette, showing her the lights outside were still on. You're right. If there was a power outage, the lights outside would be out too, Marinette said, turning back to him. She turned back to him. She hadn't noticed how close they were in the dark. He was so close. She could feel his breath on her skin as she looked up at him. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stared. She jumped back and lost her footing in the dark, making a huge crash and screaming as she hit the floor. As she did this, it created even more screams from everyone else, who in return started to run toward the exit doors.
Are you okay? Did I trip you?
Adrien asked as he ducked to the ground, helping Marinette up, hoping she wasn't hurt. I'm fine, I think. I just didn't realize how close you were, she said as she stood back on her own feet, but Adrien's hand didn't leave hers.
Chloe? This isn't funny. Marinette could have been really hurt.
Adrien called through the darkness, hoping Chloe would hear him through the muffled feet rushing by. After Marinette got to her feet, she pulled out her phone to create some light. As she did so, she saw a few people tugging on the doors.
The doors are all locked!
Nino said worriedly.
Try the windows!
Zoe screamed. Adrien held Marinette's hand tighter, as things were starting to take a turn for the worst.
The windows are locked too!
Luka called out.
What do we do? What's going on?
Chloe, is this some kind of trick?
Nino yelled through the dark.
Chloe, open the doors. We want to leave.
Alya said again through the dark. Marinette felt her heart starting to beat faster. Not because Adrien was holding her hand, but because this didn't seem intentional. Where was Chloe? What was going on? Was this intentional? Or something more sinister? Hey guys, and thanks for watching. I hope you are enjoying this scary story I put together for you. I really am loving the eerie feelings in the story, and I would love to hear everyone's thoughts as we go through. But don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, as it's free and it helps me out a lot. But I'll see you in the next chapter. Bye guys!